I hope that caught it. I don't need no job. I just need the money.
Oh, did you clip
Welcome.
that? Oh, shit.
Hopefully. I literally just clicked. I clicked to go live. So hopefully it picked that. Hopefully it picked that up,
Yeah, it's a
everybody.
schedule
Welcome
up here.
in.
You're not live. Right?
Welcome in, everybody.
Yeah.
How you doing?
So we are live. No intro. We're with the Emperor. Here, hold on. Bow
Yes,
before
obviously.
the Emperor.
The Emperor of Den.social. I was duly elected unanimously without any questions. Elected by a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, unanimously elected to be emperor of a DAO. And funny to say it, but the DAO was created, then a leadership position was created. The title for the leadership position was created as emperor, and then I was elected. So I think I am the first one in the world to be elected as a leader of a DAO, which really has no power when you think about it, because it's a decentralized autonomous organization and it has no money. So really, it's kind of pointless, but it is a fun play on words and the idea of being an emperor. So I'm an emperor of a social media application called Den.social. How about that? And I am for I am.
So you're a Taoist.
Yeah, you
Taoist.
say, yeah,
Yes.
maybe. I'm more
You're
of
a Taoist, but yeah, you're a Taoist, but you were elected in a conclave for a life term.
Oh my gosh.
Interesting.
Oh. Yeah, and Zach is my Brutus, so I don't turn my back on him.
I am the Brutus. What does that make you, Andrew?
Well,
You're
senior
the
bald head.
Pompey. You're the Pompey.
Well,
Okay.
everyone had to take the knife and stab the emperor, Caesar, so that they couldn't blame just one person. Nobody
Who's the
knew
heretic
who was
around
real
here?
killer.
Joe.
So anyway,
Joe's
thanks,
the
gentlemen,
heretic.
for having me on again. I appreciate it. I don't think there's
That's no
much in the
problem.
news to talk about, but we'll figure out something.
Right.
It really, I mean, honestly, the only thing in the news really to talk about is what happened 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I mean, but what is it? I mean, speaking of what we've been discussing with Law Zero, the last few weeks with Greg, Andrew, where does
Yeah.
Law Zero apply in the idea of the Basilik effect
Well,
coming into frame with the Charlie Kirk escapades?
I had a strong emotional reaction, which is going to create, counteraction. People are trying to control the narrative and, hammer things down, but
Mm-hmm.
mistakes are made when you hammer things down in such a short period of time.
Yeah. It's just like in any overreach is inevitable, right? People talk about, oh, now see, this is another reason the right needs to embrace the concept of gun control, which is a basilisk effect. It might convert more people into saying, see, we don't, the public can't be trusted with guns. And so it's another reason for gun control, almost like a false flag event, even though it wasn't a false flag event. Or maybe we can legislate, the bullets, the ammo, so people can't buy the ammo. They can buy the gun, but they can't buy the ammo, or it makes it more difficult. You need an additional license or something like that. And then the argument happens, well, no, that's an infringement of my rights. And then it goes to court.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues on. Well, we need to put more lawyers in it, and more lawyers and more money, and to fund the fight on both sides. And we watch as spectators as this massive, slow moving fight in the courts on, can the restriction be put on buying ammo or not? Well, then let's restrict it with the Amex card or the MasterCard or Visa or whatever. And let's restrict it that way. And the government, a state government says, I don't want ammunition built in my state. And the legislature passes that, and the company has to move out of state to then manufacture the ammo. All kinds of things will slowly happen in this massive bureaucratic basilisk. Is kind of how I see it, as a possibility. How's that?
Well, I mean, you can
that's
think
fair
about
point.
red flag laws, right? They're designed for one specific purpose, but then somebody goes and abuses that implementation by saying, a police officer is a threat to my life that lives nearby. And then they say, well, we have to go take this to the court. And now, the police officer doesn't have, the right to protect himself or his family.
Right.
So that's another good example of how the basilisk effect could operate.
Right. Or there might be something like, well, the shooter was on a roof. Okay, from now on, all buildings must maintain roof security, roof, fencing, drones flying above the roof to make sure that nobody can climb up on a roof and have this horrendous act, horrible act happen again, which it was. But just ridiculous, silly laws, something to that effect. Only licensed professionals can be on a roof and have the key to the roof, the door to the roof, or something to that effect. And next thing you know, people are showing their passes. Look, I got a roof key. I got a roof pass. I can be on a roof as a technician. Oh, well, be careful, because the FBI is going to knock on your door, because now you got access to a roof, and the AC, they have equipment up there. They're going to want to know who you are. It goes endless and endless and endless of massive bureaucracy and laws and overreach and intrusion. And it's designed to just keep growing. It's like a self-inflicted wound as well on society, because, well, yeah, we need licenses for anyone to be on a roof, and we need more fencing to protect people from getting up on a roof and protecting the people in the crowds. And by the way, we should make sure that no guns can be on campus, and everyone has to go through a metal detector to enter the campus. Oh, well, you know what? We should have metal detectors on every business as well. The grocery store, the mom's boutique where she sells earrings or whatever, and and it's a $10,000 machine, and she can barely pay her business rent on her 100 square foot space to sell earrings. Whatever, it just becomes a massive thing. Well, we have to protect the shoppers who buy earrings in 100 square foot space.
Right.
Well, I think this is where, like, Greg right here puts it in perspective at the end of this segment, the hidden cost of control. This is not a call for nihilism, it is a call for humility. And I think events like what happened with Charlie Kirk, or 9/11 back in 2001, or Israel's 9/11, October 7th in 2023, like, all these situations eventually lead to a unification of nihilistic idea. So we lose our way in thinking that all is lost and that there's nothing more that we can do. So we have to take back that control within a nihilistic landscape of our mind, of our purview in our mind. And we end up cannibalizing ourselves as a society and as a world, because we're coming at it from a different angle. We're coming at it from more of a negative angle, rather than try to create solutions to ensure that things like that don't happen again. I mean, when you force people to adhere to certain laws because you're scared that this sort of thing, like with the Charlie Kirk assassination, is going to happen again, and you end up putting in place more laws, you're just going to get an after fact of the same thing happening more after another. Like, look at the gun-free zones at schools. I mean, schools are gun-free zones, but what does that make them? It makes them a soft target for crazed psychopaths that have mental illness issues to go in and do as they please.
Yeah. Um, it gets to a point where, well, that's how we have these old laws on the books that are still on the books that are ridiculous, and they're still not. They're still on the book. So technically, someone could get arrested for, I don't know, wearing green on a Saturday or something. It's something ridiculous.
Or in Indiana, sodomy.
Yeah, there you go.
That's still on the books.
It's not surprising.
So that way, when the police do stop you and for whatever you're doing, they can look it up and say, well, yeah, you were wearing green on Saturday. So yeah, we got you. We got you.
A good example is truck drivers, right? They had to have clean fitted sheets on their bed before they could start driving, because I know that sounds ridiculous. People have been, pulled over. I'm not sure if they've been arrested, but because they weren't up to code on the law, because the whole purpose is in case somebody's in a wreck, the truck driver can go to his bed, pull the sheet off, and cover the body. And I mean, that makes sense, but realistically, how can you know the context of every law?
Right. Yeah. Except for the person who's specialized in, law that deals with truck drivers, which is, the Department of Transportation, the DOT, or FMCSA is what it's called. Yeah, it's crazy. It's ridiculous. It becomes just this massive behemoth of control, manipulation, and it's a fight, an ongoing fight. But then it becomes a non-fight as well, because, well, that's just the law. I didn't know, but ignorance of the law. You can't have ignorance of the law.
I can push back on that. It's
sure
a very specific fear type in the Enneagram that can really pick up and read a law like that. And anybody it's 6.5, anybody who, is under that situation, like in court, they can point to the Enneagram and say, look, no, I understand why you're thinking this way, but that's a very narrow set of mental processes that can pick up, and you can explain to that, say, not everyone is mentally capable of reading it and interpreting it and maintaining that style of law. Right. And that's a very specific type of person.
True. Well, but then there's also the person who just isn't capable of understanding certain laws at all, irregardless of what their personality type is. They're just, unfortunately, don't have the intellect, the intelligence and it's not a case where they just haven't been told or informed. It's just a case of inability to understand a particular law, and they get caught in the court system in that whole basilisk.
Right.
So what you're saying is there's no law.
Well, yeah. Positive law has never been really law, but it's just more of a emotional reaction to a negative event.
What if I add to that and I say that even natural law isn't law? There's no such thing as law, period. It's literally might versus right in the real world, and that is where positive law comes to mind, because positive law takes what is natural and exposes it. Because it's always the bigger and the badder that take over and consolidate power and try to succumb the peasants, as they say.
Well, I can understand that, but if you think in the sense of like gut regular management, like of people and organizations and stuff like that, that the type 1, they say God is supposed to be has type 1 fix, because he's angry at our corruption, right? And he is an aversion to corruption. So by implementing natural law, that's his like workaround, I think.
I'm trying to
what if I said, yeah? Oh, go ahead, Andrew. Or
No,
William.
go Zach.
Oh, I was gonna say, well, what if that's not really natural law? That's just divine authority of morality.
Well, I mean, I don't know. No one has full context of how things work around the universe and its laws.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there's not 100% transparency.
Well, in the book, Greg writes something to the effect that complexity is not chaos. In other
Mhm.
words, because the laws have gotten so vast, so intricate, so um, outdated, and also new ones come on, and we're not informed of all of the new ones that. But yet we're responsible as citizens to be informed of these laws, but it's difficult to keep up with them. Um, that creates chaos. But in his book, he's I think he's right when he says the complexity of the laws, or is not chaos. There's actually order to this, and it's all about that process of well, it's a systems theory, all the inputs and gets an output, and what's the output's result, and what was the result you were looking for. So we need to change the input, and it cycles back through and through over and over and over. We rewrite the laws, we add addendums to the law, and while it becomes complex, it's actually not chaos, I think, is what he talks about.
Recursive
that makes
entrenchment.
Yeah.
He says it right there.
Yeah.
It's not a linear correction, but a recursive entrenchment.
There you go.
So,
Right there, too. Complexity is not chaos.
And then there you go. To understand how recursion metastasizes, we must distinguish complexity from chaos. Chaos is disordered within pattern. Complexity is interdependent order, a web of interactions that cannot be easily reduced or forecasted. It is sensitive to input and adaptive to change.
Right.
So intervening in complex systems does not merely change a variable, it reconfigures the context in which variables relate.
Yeah.
So how do we distinguish that from our reality today? I mean, I don't think we're reconfiguring context. I think we're trying to control context and fulfill it as this niche of content rather than the context that's woven within it. And so that's where you get a lot of infighting you get that Basilik effect of the infighting. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I mean, so many inputs. It's really about trying to manage the output, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, managing the input, exactly. And we're part of that. We're part of the input by our actions. By if we riot, if we revolt, or if we call our congressperson and say, "Hey, you need to put a stop sign on the railroad tracks," we get caught up in all of that, and we get sucked into the basilisk effect. And that law is unconstitutional. No, it's constitutional. Or we need this law. Well, yeah, that sounds good. We need that law. No, you don't need that law because that's going to affect my business, and it becomes a money game. How much money is put into it, and some people like, yeah, that's a great law, not realizing that the consequences downstream are going to be vast and difficult, and create a need for more inputs into the system, more laws, and that more we just get it's almost, gosh, it seems like satanic. It's satanic. It's like we get in this rut, or this trap of constant infighting on, well, look what this law did to my business, look what this law did to us, and or this company, and the big company can survive and the little one can't because of the complexity of the laws. And we get caught up in that infighting about the law and not taking a step back. I think what Greg talks about later in the book about don't stare at the basilisk, because it'll freeze you. It'll freeze you in that fight, that argument for or against a particular law in the books, or for or against a particular reason for the state to exist. Instead, you got to step away from all of that fighting and bickering and energy that you're putting forth to try to get your, no, the right is correct, no, the left is correct, we need to be progressive, we need to be conservative, and this infighting and this division create is like something that the basilisk feeds off of, almost like Satan's feeding off of the ill, the ugly, the evil. And at one point you just step away and start building in a different direction, a parallel, and start solving different problems that are closer to home, I think. And I'm jumping way ahead in the book. And
you're fine. I was talking about the red flag laws earlier. Just for a quick sec, then I'll let you talk. I'm sorry. There was a guy up in New York whose name was Whiskey Warrior 556 several years ago, about 5 years ago. I looked it up on YouTube real quick in case we want to watch a video about it. But basically, he was like an army vet that had an extended magazine or whatever, and they came and raided his house. Like, it was a Saturday night. I remember because I was working at the medical college when I was working there, and there was like all kinds of different, people reacting and like calling the police department, and they couldn't get the phone. The lines were jammed, and there were people meeting in like the cemetery, and it was just a big wild thing. And the police finally got him to come out of his house. He wasn't being violent or anything, and the police said, "Oh, he was creating a threat against his ex-wife or whatever, girlfriend or whatever." And like everybody that was like fighting for it, it's like, "Oh well, he's a bad person, so I'm not gonna." They're just totally ignoring, the point of the matter, because they couldn't be associated with somebody who had a bad reputation. And you don't realize until people start walking away how many people don't care about the things that you're professing to care about.
Whiskey Warrior is basically the first instance in our modern age of what would eventually lead to Dexter Taylor's 10 years in prison for building guns for a hobby.
Right.
Wasn't a hobby. Wasn't even the fact that he was going to use it was a hobby. And it really doesn't matter anyways, because whether it's Whiskey Warrior 5 whatever, or Dexter Taylor, or whoever or whoever you are, what goes on in your private domain is in your private domain, right? Like that's what we're missing, and we're giving up our privacy to feel safe. I mean, and I was kind of making a joke, like when you said it about the laws there, William. Like there's laws on the books that are still there. I was kind of making a joke, but it's real. It real. I mean, and I don't think they actually enforce it for the most part. They really can't. They can enforce it in other regimes, like in the count of rape, but sodomy really is still a charge in the state of Indiana, as I think it's in as in many states. I would imagine it's still a statute. That has a lot more to do with the culture, the ethics and the culture of days prior, like 100 years ago, when homosexuality was seen as very obscene and very nasty and evil and demonic. So, and the morals of that concept led into the legality. But the simple fact is what happens in your home doesn't matter. If you want to go commit sodomy in your home, as long as it's consenting.
Consenting adults.
Yeah. If it's consenting adults committing sodomy in the home, how do I know that you're that you're sodomizing each other? I don't. I mean, keep it private. So, I mean, same with the gun situation, same with any situation, really. If you're not hurting anybody and you are leaving everybody alone and want to be left alone yourself, then what is the big deal?
You can't legislate morality, it's often said, and I think that's true.
And I think that's the issue in our forms of governance anymore. We've gotten so comfortable with wanting safety and security rather than liberty that we've ignored morality, by allowing morality to be dictated on a relativist standard in legality. And we're getting twisted that morality is relative because legality is relative, because what is legal
Right.
it depends on what the society actually contends with. So if you think marijuana should be illegal, then that's what your community and your culture and your society chooses, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's immoral. I may perceive that it's not a good thing. With being an ex-drug addict, I kind of do, and I don't really care about weed anyways, because I've done more better and a lot more disgusting bodily draining drugs in my life. So but at the same time, it's just a plant. People want to do their thing, and if they're not hurting anybody, what's the issue? Why should it be legal or illegal? Why should it be legal anyways? Why do we need to define legality?
I would argue there are some laws on the book that if you're damned if you do or if you don't, or if you are neutral on something, you're breaking a law or something. I don't know. I'm thinking like the Good Samaritan law. Well, I was trying to help. Well, now you're going to get sued civilly because you paralyzed the dude. Well, he was in a burning car. He was going to burn up and die or whatever. Well, I'm sorry, but you still paralyzed him. And so it becomes this argument in the courts, and you're just trying to help. I guess it really, like, going back to you can't legislate morality. Well, the first principles, what are the first principles? Your first principles might be different than mine. I don't know how we rectify that through the state, or how the basilisk is a trap. It's going to want you to keep fighting for your first principles, and I'm going to fight for my first principles, and we're going to fight for new legislation that support or go against the others. And it's like it's fed that way. I think of it as the monster, and we're feeding the monster by allowing us to suck us into the argument of new laws, or encouraging the enforcement of a current law in the books, or encouraging people to invade someone else's privacy, like you're talking about, Zach, and even though it's consensual and there were adults involved, well, no, we need to stop that behavior, because we haven't agreed on first principles. I often say, like the Second Amendment, we as a nation here in the U.S., we, if you want to call the Bill of Rights first principles, and the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, well, we can't even agree on that first principle. So we're both sides are going to fight for different legislation, which brings up the next point of legal precedents. That's all part of the basilisk as well. Well, we have a legal precedence in Johnson versus North Carolina. Well, we have a legal precedence over here. William versus Texas, and these legal precedents are at odds with each other. And so now it's got to go to the federal court, and we all get tangled up in this whirlwind that's like a tornado effect, sucking us in to the fight against two legal precedents. And it's all part of the basilisk. It's a monster.
The laws, code of law is a projection. It's an abstract that they use to concentrate and lay foundation for their existence.
Right here. Each new layer of intervention is justified by the failure of the last. The system becomes self-justifying, which goes to the point that if it becomes self-justifying, that means that you and yourself individually have your own various forms of first principles, which means you legislating yourself what is morally right and what is morally wrong. But that doesn't mean that somebody else cares to ascertain to your first principles, your morality, even though morality is objective. There in the idea that there is good, there is evil acts. I mean, and we should strive for the good rather than do evil. Like we all know murder, rape, and theft is wrong. I think we all agree with that. I think even those on the so-called left, I would hope, agree with that, and those on the right agree with that. But yet everything else in between, we fail to realize that we are our own creatures trying to define those moral objectives and figure out what is right and wrong within our first principles within the perspective of the objective morality of good and evil. And then that's when we get twisted and it goes into a full circle effect where we're right back where we're at where we began, and everything ends up becoming relativist and there's no good or evil and everything has to be legislated, and the legality ends up defining what is moral, and then now morality just means uh it's it's only good if I say that it's good.
Right.
Right.
So
Well, and the self-justifying part, I think of just occurred to me. Maybe it applies here, maybe it doesn't. You tell me. But
mhm.
well, government exists, otherwise we wouldn't have roads. That's self-justifying.
Mm.
If we didn't have government, we wouldn't have roads. Who's going to build the roads? Who's going to maintain the roads if we don't have
I mean,
taxation? And these kinds
I
of
will
things.
push back on that, and then I'll
Or-
let you finish, William. The Assyrians, the Neo Assyrian Empire, if it wasn't for their expansion, they probably don't have roads. Go on.
No, that's really what I was going to say. Is it's the self-justifying point of well, if we didn't have government, we wouldn't have laws. If we didn't have laws, we'd have
Mhm.
no order. We had no order,
Yeah.
we'd be in a state of chaos. It seems that so the basilisk is
Mhm.
justifying its existence to prevent chaos, when in fact it's creating complexity with its laws, which we can't keep up with. So that creates chaos. Well, we need to simplify it. So we need to simplify the laws. How many times have we heard that? Or we hear that
Mhm.
Lady Justice is blind. That's why she has the blindfold. She doesn't peek. We have a legal system where justice is blind, and the scales aren't tipped for the rich. The scales are held evenly by Lady Justice. But we all
Mhm.
argue and say, well, look at that. If you got money, you can get away with it. We hear that all the time. Lady Justice isn't
Mhm.
blind. We hear that phrase all the time. And it's all tied into this massive bureaucratic legal system of laws and the state and the government of, of self justifying its existence, thinking that we as humans, we're interacting right here, right now on this, in this space, and we don't need laws that are telling me what I can or can't say or express myself in this idea that Greg Lang's book here is so eloquently describing the
Mhm.
basilisk. We don't need laws to have this discussion in place. Um, and we don't need the censorship of a government to step in and say, no, William, you can't speak ill of the government. Um, is Lady Justice got ears too now? Is that listening in?
Mhm.
Invasion of privacy into our discussion here?
Yeah.
Lots
Reminds me
to
of
step back
that
there.
quote from Bastiat. Socialism, like the ancient ideas from which it springs, confuses the distinction between government and society. As a result of this, every time we object to the thing being done by government, the socialist concludes that we object to being done at all.
Damned if you do or damned if you don't.
Right.
Basically.
And also it's asking the basilisk, oh, save me, oh, help me, oh, basilisk, I want my Obama phone. Oh, Basilik, save me. I want UBI. It's hard out here. I don't want to work. Oh, Basilik, put up the stop sign at the railroad tracks so the bus must stop. Well, that's a good idea. Well, look with this bus. It didn't stop on the railroad tracks and got hit, and these children were killed. And the horrific, loss of life, and the parents and the families that suffered, and those who witnessed it, or the first responders, all were scarred from this ugly event that took place. And so the stop sign on the railroad tracks is a good idea. Yet maybe if the bus driver was a little bit more cautious, a little bit, discerning of the environment, would know, hey, I'm not going to just run across the railroad tracks. I'm going to do, the logical thing. I'm going to stop and make sure it's clear before I go. These kinds of things. Was the stop sign needed if we had a safe, intelligent bus driver? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. But it sure made sense to put that stop sign in front of the railroad track and require all buses to stop, because the passenger has no say. The passenger's safety is we're relying on the bus driver, and we're relying on the equipment. Well, now we need laws to say that equipment, that bus, needs to be strong enough to handle a locomotive running down the tracks at 50 miles an hour. Not going to happen.
Right.
Well, let's put a law in it anyway. So the law gets ahead of even the technology in some cases.
Meanwhile, the local police school system is like moving drunk bus drivers from one post to another so they don't have to fire anybody. Next county over. Just don't say anything. Keep your head down. Don't be an idiot.
Liberalism is a disease. What do you think about this quote and how it ties in? Power without morality leads to abuse, and freedom without morality leads to depravity. Oscar Alik I say. I don't know. I don't speak Italian.
He's asking me or William?
Either of you.
Andrew. I'm still trying to.
Both of you.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you definitely had to have some form of morality when you're managing people. I mean, but not everybody needs to be managed.
How do you manage people?
Well, you can either manage people through brute force or through trying to do things the right way.
But I still don't understand how you manage people, because we're all people. So somebody can't really manage somebody. Like,
there's natural hierarchy orders, right? There's going to be some management in that.
I don't believe in that. I don't think that there's a natural hierarchy. I think there's just human beings that are just better, smarter, faster, more skilled than other human beings. They're just blessed.
I mean, I don't know what I can tell you. You got your opinion and I got mine.
Well, the Basilik wants you both to put up a fight and invested that in your cause and your belief, and fight it out in legislature, in bills, and pay off the lobbyists to position your point. Plug in the word Basilik or the state or government where it says power. The government without morality leads to abuse. Oh, people are going to go, well, yeah. And freedom without morality leads to depravity. Or, people will say that, well, we're just not ready for an anarchy. We're just not ready for that because society isn't moral enough. We don't have enough ethics. We don't believe in the sanctity of life anymore, or respect people's property. So anarchy is ahead of its time, is what people will often argue. So we need the state, and but then the state is immoral in its overreach. It's immoral in its laws, and it's immoral in its corruption, which leads to abuse.
Which leads to anarcho-tyranny. where they're forcing a law-abiding populace to be in fear of both laws and criminals while not enforcing. I mean, they want you to abide by the law, but at the same time, they don't enforce the law. So then you have corruption at the top, criminality at the bottom, and squeezed in, you have the middle section, the law abiding, that live in fear that they might have someone kicking their door at night. So now you have a society that locks their door and has an alarm, and maybe that's just marketing, maybe that's capitalism. Honestly, just so you can buy those alarm systems, those security systems, and that go straight to the police. Press a button,
Maybe this,
alarm goes off. Who knows? I
maybe
don't know, but
that's the moderate position.
yeah. So,
There's so
but
many
that's
factors there, though. There's so many factors. Is the lack of respect for someone's property, which let's call it thievery, someone stealing someone else's property, is that
yeah.
based off of morals of the individual? Is it based off of, well, you didn't secure your property, you didn't lock your doors, you left your windows down in your car, it's your fault. Well,
That's
it's my
stern.
property. Or is it a case of, well, this person was convicted multiple times and still gets out on the street and still commits crimes over and over and over, so the state didn't protect me. The state didn't protect me. Well, it's tough economic times. What am I going to do? I got to steal to survive, to put food on the table. I don't, there's so much that goes into that. But the idea that power without morality leads to abuse, well, that's pointing to a fiction, a myth that we're going to someday have a benevolent dictator. The benevolent dictator would solve all this because they would be moral in every choice and every decision they made. Justice would be even-handed. It would, laws would be enforced through morality. There would be no abuse by the leader. It's a myth to think that we can elect officials who won't become corrupt, which is a crime, and freedom without morality leads to depravity. Well, wait a minute.
I would actually change that. I would change morality in that part. Freedom without morality. Instead, I would say freedom without liberty leads to depravity. Because I think there's a difference in correlation between what is freedom and what is liberty. I think liberty is freedom within our responsible, rational, logical minds of protecting what is ours and what is other people's. So like having a cooperation with one another and an understanding. And then I look at freedom, that's liberty in my opinion. And then I look at freedom of this immoral, deprived, debaucherous society of do whatever you damn well please.
Well, I'm free to steal from you, Zach. Yeah. So I have, I'm free. I have free will to choose to steal from you. So is that my depravity? I think so.
Because I think in a liberty, and I'll let you jump in on this, Andrew, but I think with that, like, you're free to steal from me, yes, but in a liberty sounded moral society, I am free to defend myself. Whereas in a free society, you can do whatever you want and steal from me. I better not do what I got. I better not defend myself though, because then now we're touching into the anarcho-tyranny aspect. Because when I look at freedom compared to liberty, I look at the state, and the state legislates morality into their legal question, which allows for you to steal from me, but I can't defend myself. So therefore, if I defend myself, we're gonna have a Daniel Perry situation. All right, guy ends up causing ruckus on the subway and is very violent, and he gets put in a choke lock to subdue him. He sadly he ends up dying, passing away. And Perry, who did a good thing, going back to the Good Samaritan analogy, the Good Samaritan law, who did a good thing, he's now, because of the law, uh, he's now looked at as the bad guy because you killed somebody. Oh, bad, poor you. Uh, so, and that's what I see the difference between a free society and a libertarian society, a real libertarian society.
Okay. Let me ask you a very specific question. I used to work at Walmart several years ago, and I worked overnight
Yeah.
as a stock person. People would come in with backpacks, and they would just basically tax whatever they wanted. They take whatever they wanted and leave because they know there was no overnight security there. They don't do that now because they've completely shut down the overnight for people to go and shop overnight. But
Thank you, COVID.
it opens an interesting question. Okay, you as a good, honest person go to Walmart, you pay for your groceries. Somebody else is going and stealing, and so they write off that tax through the tax system. They write off that theft, which means that you have to pay additional, taxes, and they had to inflate the money supply. At what
Everyone
point?
did. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
At what point is the script flipped where you're just taking the because it's a violation of the the non-aggression principle? What do you think?
You mean like the laws that are put in place a lot, especially in these blue states, where if it's over, what is it? If it's not over, is it
Under
$1,000?
$1,000, I think.
Yeah,
Under
yeah,
a
yeah,
thousand
it's
dollars.
1,000. So if it's under $1,000, you can go in and steal whatever you want, and nobody's going to prosecute. But at the same time, what that does is there's two things that's going to happen with the business. They're either going to eventually not be able to stay in business, which that's what they want. They want the small businesses to go under, and then the large scale corporations are going to, for the most part, be able to afford to put in security protocols to deter people.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I think in that analogy, I think what it is it's trying to legislate an immoral situation of theft as a protocol for eroding competition.
and I'm not advocating for this. I'm just asking an interesting
Right.
question because
Right.
Mhm.
you're adversely possessing your time. You pay
Mhm.
with the money from your time from work, right?
Mhm.
At what point, it's like I said, it's the script flips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, William.
I was just gonna say there's so much because when Walmart has the theft that happens on the books, and that's now a write off from a tax perspective. Well, we didn't sell the merchandise; we lost the merchandise to theft, so therefore we don't have to pay an inventory tax for that. We don't have to pay an income tax based off of what we would have received as income had we sold it. So everyone has to pay. It ultimately comes down to the entire system. All taxpayers now are paying for Walmart's ability to write it off on their taxes because the government is going to still spend the money. Um, uh, there's a tax bill, shall we say, that we all have to pay. And then when the law isn't applied equally and enforced, and people say, well, look at, I stole $999 and I got away with it because I didn't go over the $1,000 mark. I can go back tomorrow and do it again. And I'll tell my buddy, and my buddy does it again. And next thing you know, you have a lawless society where everyone is stealing $999 worth of goods, and stores start shutting down because too much theft and not enough sales. And it just and so it's almost like, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. The incentive to steal becomes a greater because there's no risk of getting caught and having consequences. So forget that it's immoral. There becomes an incentive. And so show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. The incentive to steal becomes greater. And next thing you know, the store stops, shuts down completely in that city or in that neighborhood because of the ongoing theft. and now everyone is now suffering because now they have to travel further to get their goods. And it's a basilisk effect that Greg describes. It's another input into the system, and another input and another input with a different return and a different outcome, and it will change the law, or we'll lower it to $500 from $1,000 to try to curb it. Well, now everyone just steals twice as many times, but only $499 worth. And it goes on and on and on. And there's more laws and more that's going on. And we all, as society as a whole, pay for it, because ultimately it comes back down to the state or the government with that tax write-off, or the lack of income to have to pay taxes on. Can I give you another different example, if you will?
Oh, go ahead.
It creates a conundrum, a question. And it fits right in with the book. Let's suppose that I drive in at night and I park in my driveway and I leave my wallet by accident on my dash for everyone to see, but it's dark. But I forget. I left my wallet on the dash. And the thief comes around at 4 a.m, breaks the glass, steals my wallet. And I get up in the morning and I notice that my glass is broken. I can't find my wallet. And I go, oh, crap, I forgot my wallet is on the dash. So at this point, I say, okay, who is to blame here? I got 4 choices. Well, I can blame the thief. I could blame myself for forgetting to lock my car, or maybe I did lock the car, but the thief broke the glass. So now I can blame the manufacturer for not having an automatic door lock or a stronger glass that can't be broken to protect my valuables that are inside my car. Ooh, yeah, I could do that. Or wait a minute, I should blame the government, because maybe the criminal is a repeated criminal. He goes down every street every night at 4 a.m, checking doors and stealing things out of cars. So I'm going to blame the state. The state didn't protect me. The state allowed this theft to happen. The state didn't have enough police patrolling my neighborhood. Every neighborhood, even if it was a gated community, is unsafe, and therefore it's the state, it's the basilisk that didn't protect me from being, from theft. I'm not going to take responsibility because it was the car, it was the government, it was the thief. Who is to blame here? Who should we look to solve this problem? Do we look internally? Oh, damn. Yeah. I bought a cheap glass car and I forgot to lock the door, and I left my wallet on the dash. No, it's the government's fault, because the government didn't protect me.
When in reality, we should be, instead of falling deeper and deeper into the basilisk, we should actually look at, well, perhaps maybe it's a societal issue based on mine and other people's interpretations for how we want society to be run, and I'm forgetful to securing my own valuables and my own vehicle and my own self. And so, because my forgetfulness of not locking my car, or buying a cheap car with cheap glass because I did lock it, but he still bashed it in, leaving my wallet on the dash for them to see it, it is my fault. And it's also the thief's fault for thinking that they can just go and steal. Like they take the easy way out in life by stealing from people. Well, you're just a hardworking person, but you took the easy way out in thinking that you're secure without being secure, without securing yourself. But in our society today, we try to outsource. Like the left says, like, let's take the gun issue. Like it's not the person behind the gun's fault, it's the gun, right? And the right argues the opposite. So like, if that's the case, then the manufacturer is the culprit, but all they're doing is making a product, no different from the vehicle that you forgot to lock, and or you did lock, but the glass was cheap.
Right. maybe I should blame the church for not converting everyone's soul and living a moral and ethical life. Maybe I should
Yes.
blame the government, because maybe the thief shouldn't be blamed here, because the
Mhm.
thief is a drug addict, and the
Mm.
government isn't securing the border, and therefore this person is now a drug addict and stealing my wallet to get the next fix.
See,
Maybe
it's
it goes
just
on and
ever
on and
growing.
on. Maybe it's the government's fault for not making the laws strict enough, enforced well
Mhm.
enough, and the punishment so severe for the minor theft. And maybe it's the government's fault,
Mhm.
because it is allowing, it's just slap on the hand for the stealing of the wallet, and they can have 100 slaps, and it'll just continue on and
Mhm.
on and on. So no, I'm going to blame the government. So
It's
I'm going to
the
look to
yeah.
the state for a solution. I'm going to
I
look for the state to fix it.
Mm.
The
It's the
I
ebbs
have
and flows.
basilisk can save us.
Yeah, it's the
I
ebbs
have
and flows. Like we like to play the blame game, but in reality, who exactly are we blaming? Like we're just trying to take we're trying to take the responsibility of ourselves off of ourselves and give it to everybody else. It's like it's everybody else's fault. It's not my fault.
I tell you what, I'm going to church on Sunday. I'm going to curse out my minister because he didn't convert enough souls and prevent this thievery from happening.
I have
Andrew,
a
you're
good,
starting to say
I have,
something.
Go
I have
ahead,
a really
Andrew.
good real life example of this. Okay, so I do this in two
You
ways.
were touched by a Catholic. You were touched by a Catholic priest when you
Yes,
were
yes,
5.
no.
Go ahead.
I can say that,
We've
everybody.
seen decay and personal responsibility, like you're talking about, William, and everybody's outsourcing first to the church, and then the church outsources that responsibility to the state.
Mhm.
I have a family member who used to work for Procter and Gamble in public relations, and they take phone calls. Right, this guy, he decided he was going to clean his motorcycle in the dishwasher, so he took Dawn and put it in the dishwasher with his motorcycle. Like he took the motorcycle part and then put it back together. And he called Procter and Gamble because this is according to what I've been told. His motorcycle doesn't work anymore, and he wanted them to buy him a brand new Harley. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. People, they think this will work. They don't use their head. They don't have concern or fear of the outcomes of their choices. They're just pull,
Yeah. Well,
And
the dishwasher,
Mm.
the dishwasher didn't have, do not put your Harley in this
that's
dishwasher.
exactly
and
what he
use this
said.
soap. You can't fix stupid. You
Are
can't.
psychic?
But guess what though? The basilisk can. The basilisk can fix stupid, because the basilisk is going to allow the attorneys to get involved and sue Procter and Gamble for not having that label right here on their their dishwasher soap. And next thing
This
you
is
know,
the
you got when you buy this dishwasher soap, you're going to have all the things what you can or can't use the dishwasher soap for. Courtesy and thank you to the basilisk and the basilisk and the attorneys and the whole
My
legal
coffee is hot. I'm gonna spill it on my lap and file a lawsuit against McDonald's.
that's a Basilik effect, because what did that start? It started the domino effect of people blaming everybody else. I mean, should McDonald's probably have had a caution that says very hot for stupid people? Sure. Maybe they should have, just for a courtesy. But the fact that she wanted to blame McDonald's because she spilt the coffee that was obviously hot on her lap, probably by accident, mistake, shit happens. I've spilt coffee on myself as well. I mean, and then Sue, and she made a good load of money. It started this domino effect of people blaming everybody else, whether it's the gun manufacturer over the mass shooting, whether it's the Dawn soap over the the washing with Procter and Gamble or the Harley, right? Whether it's the hot, yeah, I mean, it all started with the hot coffee and the McDonald's. It's like, why? Who cares? It's your fault. Own up to it. McDonald's, I mean, and understand that McDonald's coffee is hot because it's hot coffee. Don's
Right.
dish soap is for dishes.
So I
And toilets, actually. I will say that it is for toilets.
um,
Good stuff on toilets. I use it all the time on the toilet.
I don't want to get into the solution side of the book and jump ahead too fast, but one solution would be, okay, so I'm going to make this new dishwasher soap, and you know what? I'm going to outcompete Procter and Gamble because it's going to be cheaper, because I'm not going to have to include this long laundry list of things it can or can't be used for. I'm just going to say use at your own risk, personal responsibility. And I'm going to undercut it with the lawyers. You can't sue me because it's use at your own risk, personal responsibility. And by the way, I'm gonna make this decentralized and all over the world, and the ownership is going to be a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. So there are really no owners, you know. And I'm going to skirt and be a parallel system to this soap, and blaze forward. And as an alternative, shall we say, maybe. And you guys can go ahead and play in your soapbox with your basilisks, and I'm just gonna play with this soap, and buyer beware. May or may not work. And guess what? Buyer beware. That's right. But we also have an internet that's going to say, I give this 5 stars, or I only give it 1 star. It didn't clean my Harley. I'm going to give it 5 stars because it cleaned my dishes. My glass is really clear and clean because I use this soap. And so I'm going to give it 5 stars. So I'm going to rely on the wealth of information by other users who bought it and reviewed it. And it's called the wisdom of the crowd, by the way. And, which is uncannily accurate, even above experts. Yeah, it's
a weighted
crazy.
Score.
What's that?
A weighted score.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weighted score. But what it is it's incentivizing. If you incentivize the crowd to get the right answer, people aren't going to go out there and say, "I'm just going to give them a 1 because they used a white label and I don't like the color white." But if you give the crowd the incentive that says, you get, I don't know, a token, a crypto token, if you get in early and answer correctly. In other words, the crowd as a whole, a consensus out of 1 out of 5 stars, the crowd as a consensus got a 4. Well, the first people that came in and gave it a 4 got the right answer, because the wisdom of the crowd, the majority of the people give it a 4. They didn't give it a 5. They only gave it a 4. And so those people who gave it a 4 get rewarded the token. It's called incentivizing human behavior to get an accurate result or an accurate picture. And it's a fact-based phenomenon that can work. And you don't need a basilisk at this point. You don't need the lawyers. You don't need the system of a complex set of laws that creates chaos. So we're going to create chaos, but we're going to fix the chaos with new laws. Yeah, that works. Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I guess it goes. But kudos to Greg for this book, Law Zero. If anyone's out there watching, you can listen to the audio version, or you can download the PDF and read it. I got the PDF open here right now. It's what, I don't know. Remember, it's like 60 pages. It's not that many.
I believe.
Or no, it's a little bit more than that. It's with the epilogue, it's 80 pages, I think. But it's a fairly easy read. But you can listen to the audio and you get the points. It I got questions for him. So next time he's on, I definitely have some questions for him. But in my reading, the basilisk is this dragon that when it stares at its enemy, the enemy becomes frozen and can't move or do anything. And we've many of us have had those dreams at night where you're you're faced in your dream. It's a nightmare, and you're faced against whatever murderer or a monster or something, and you just panic and you freeze. Well, that's what is also what the basilisk does, and it was a mythical creature. Well, we freeze when we are staring at. I replaced the basilisk with the word capital S, the state or government, the state. We freeze in this complexity, or we constantly look for, well, we need a new law. Yeah, that we got to stop this. We need another new law. Well, that law created this problem. Yeah, we got to fix that problem too. So let's create another law and another law and another one and another one, because each law that's passed seems like a good idea at the time, and the forces win and get that law to pass over the forces that said, no, this isn't a good law. It's going to have problems. And it creates jobs. It creates more bureaucrats. It creates more lawsuits, more courts, more judges, more attorneys to fight against the bad laws. And it's just a perpetuating, ugly, self-justifying monster that is
Another thing to think
can be
about
defeated.
is that when they write these laws, right, they'll have 2 or 3 backup laws on the books like somewhere else, but they're just slightly adjusted. So in case that somebody actually does challenge the one law, and it does get to the point where it's struck down, the other laws are still in place, and they have to spend that same amount of money that's constantly being devalued to try to fight each interpretation on a
Bingo.
case-by-case basis.
Bingo.
And I
Bingo.
mean, there's so many laws that are put on the books. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen they're like, "Oh, we have to pass this right now," and then like Nancy Pelosi said, "We had to pass it to see what's in it."
Right.
You know,
Yeah. How about the law? You're reading it and you're going through the law and you're going through. Well, that's I don't quite understand that, and so that becomes a lawsuit because the law wasn't specific enough. It wasn't quite detailed enough, and so that creates another issue where it creates an opening or back door for approval, or I don't have to adhere to this law because right here it states such and such and such and such. Well, you know what? We need to go back and rewrite this law and correct it. And so next thing you know, the legal law that's actually written, or the bill before it becomes the law, it's like from here to from which therefore we shall, beyond custodial needs of to subsidize on therefore Den.social shall cow, whatever, and it becomes this legalized difficult language that the novice, the individual, the average Joe can't understand. And we always talk about legalese and the fine print at the bottom of the contract. That's all part of the basilisk effect, the complexity. It's not chaos. It's done on purpose, and it creates. Well, I don't quite understand that. No problem. I'm an attorney. I'm going to interpret that for you. It simply means this, this, and this. Oh, okay. Now I understand. And another attorney says, no, it doesn't. We're going to sue you because it doesn't quite mean that. It specifically says, and then therefore thou shalt cow now. It just goes on and on and on. And we get caught up in it. We get sucked up in it. It's like a tornado. It just sucks up everything, which becomes the debris later. Destructive path. It takes away free will. It takes away our freedoms, our liberty. And we become dependent upon it. We become well, that's the answer. I need the basilisk. I need the government to solve this problem. And it creates another problem. Well, I need the government to step in once again and solve this problem. Here's another one for you. So, the border gets open. We get a terrorist that comes in. The terrorist strikes internally, and there's massive loss of life. who do we blame? Do we blame the terrorist who had different ideologies or faith or belief or religion than us? Or do we blame the government who let the border open? Or do we blame the military because the military didn't bomb that country enough and wipe out that terrorist group or cell? Oh, well, we need a bigger government to secure the border. We need a bigger military to go bomb them out of existence, and we need to take our shoes off at the airport to make sure we're not bombs on a plane. We need to make sure that we go through more metal detectors and have a TSA, and we need to listen to people's conversations in case they're planning a plot. And it goes on and on and on and on.
And it's never enough.
Never enough. The Patriot Act, Patriot 2.0, 5.0, 8.0, it goes on, and it digs in, and it becomes more complex, and it grows. It sucks in more. The marrow of life is the basilisk. Evil.
I mean, I can tell you, I had a family member that worked for Delta Airlines. I don't know. This is circle around all over the place. But he was there before 9/11, and they had policies in place, and there was some kind of lawsuit. And they said, well, that's discrimination. And so they had to take their policies off the books, like to protect people from hijacking and stuff like that. And then 9/11 happened. I mean, that's just part for the course. It's always gonna be finding a way to get over and present yourself as somebody who's a savior to mankind.
Right.
And it's fairly immature.
Well, and it's costly. It's a burden on all of us financially as well. The example that I gave about the wallet in the car and the manufacturer of the car. Well, I locked my doors, but the window glass was too thin, too cheap, too easy to break. So we need to make thicker windows. And it's harder to break. So they can't steal my wallet if I accidentally leave it in the car. So now the glass becomes high tech and more expensive and thicker, and to prevent breakage and theft. And then there's lawsuits because I couldn't escape my burning car because the glass was too difficult and too hard to break, or whatever. Right. It goes on and on and on. And now the cost of a car becomes extremely expensive because next thing you know, we're building tanks, with thick bulletproof glass to protect us from leaving our wallets on our dash and getting stolen. And so now the price of the car triples, quadruples, and it becomes legislated that, it's not a free market, that Ford says, well, we got, 12-inch glass. And then Chrysler says, we have 14-inch glass. We have the best glass to prevent breakage, and it becomes the cost of the car goes up and up and up.
It sounds stupid, but look, we got the Cybertruck. It's got bulletproof glass, right?
Yeah.
And kind of build off of the thing about the question I had about Walmart earlier. Mm-hmm. I understand it that the way they're able to raise their price or raise their wages is that they shut down uncompetitive stores. So when people steal from Walmart, not only is there an adverse possession element as a reaction, but then the people at that Walmart lose. So like little towns that only have like Walmart is the major employer, you're screwed,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a long-reaching, reverberating consequences to every good policy and bad policy.
Right. Well, I think we figured out who to blame. We have to blame the ministers, the pastors, the priests for not converting everyone into Christianity, and converting everyone. This is for Zachary, he's listening. Converting everyone so they stop stealing, and so that we don't need border security, and we don't get a terrorist act, and we don't have corruption in our government because everyone is now pious and adhere to first principles. Thou shalt not steal, the 10 Commandments or whatever, and so thou shalt not have corruption in thy government. And so I'm going to blame the clergy. Yes, the clergy are at fault because they didn't convert all the souls.
I mean, that is something some people could say, but you could also think if you constantly have people migrating into your area, you know, you can only put so many people in jail at a time, and there's going to always be an uptake with new actors. You don't know if they're good actors or bad actors.
That's why I'm going to propose a bill, Andrew. And the bill is not that we don't have enough cells, we don't have enough churches. And so therefore the government needs to build more churches. And someone who, steals must, go to church every Sunday and for 12 weeks in a row and go to Bible study and recite the 10 commandments every day in front of their pastor or priest or whatever. And this is going to be a bill, and that's going to stop all the thieves from stealing. They'll be converted that it's not right. Thou shalt not steal. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And that's going to solve everything. It's the basilisk. The basilisk can do it. Yes. We just need to convert the souls so that they don't steal anymore. We need a theocracy. That's what we need. Yes, we need a theocracy. Forget this whole constitution. It's not working. Let's appoint, the Pope as our king and our president. I don't know. It gets just crazy. But as crazy and insane as that idea and concept is, it's really an example of, I think, the basilisk effect, because we've replaced. The basilisk is almost like a religion now. We look to the system to fix and solve all of our ills, our problems, rather than taking more personal responsibility, or look at alternatives that are outside of the system that resolve or fix the solution, or be part of taking the initiative and the effort to solve these problems on our own, or building those alternative avenues or parallels. There you go.
Yeah. Man.
So
I don't know. Yeah. Where do we go from here?
Blame the clergy.
Hey.
That's just.
Are you a heretic? That's my job.
Oh yeah. See, the heretics. That's where the solution is. We need everyone to be heretics who are God-fearing.
Yeah.
Oh,
that could work.
Yeah,
but
it's just great. But Greg's book here is really good. Law Zero, the basilisk. I love it. I love it. I got to ask him why he picked the basilisk as an example, this mythical creature. But like I said, the basilisk also is a lizard that can run real fast and has been, they filmed it running on water. It's almost like creating a miracle, like Jesus walked on water. Well, this basilisk lizard can do it. But it's just an ongoing loop, isn't it? Of law after law, after policy after policy, after regulation, and
it's a revolving door.
Yeah,
just like it said. I wonder if
layer upon layer. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe someday there'll be an archaeologist that's going to be digging up, I don't know, Washington D.C. and that's been covered for thousands of years, and they'll come across this great vast catacomb, and inside that catacomb is the law library, and some of this, it'll be just like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they're going to be going through it and looking at this like, wow, I got to learn legalese so I can understand this. Well, we're working on it. We're going to put our best AI on deciphering what legalese is and what that means. They have this law in the book. Well, that can't be right because this law over here contradicted this law. Well, which law came first? I don't know. And they're going to have to decipher and determine which law was created when and by whom and why, and uncover this insane, complex basilisk to determine how they lived 1,000 years ago, based off of these laws and commandments.
Right. Yeah, there was. I mean, the law is obviously perfect. There was a fire when I was living in Knoxville several years ago, and it's a national park. It's a place called Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and it was like man-made fire. Somebody had threw a Molotov or something like that up in chimney stacks, and there was some sort. There was a mismanagement of the law because they had two different people or two different departments, like for the fire department, no, for the national park, and nobody was legally any in charge of, because of the way that they mismanaged their situation. So, like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of dollars of property damage, and countless people died, and they caught the guy that did it, and he got off on a technicality. Just stupid teenager.
Yeah.
Just like the other day.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of technicality that they let him out on that.
Who knows? I don't know. Utah supposedly has the death penalty. It's this premeditated murder for Charlie Kirk. I don't think, how could it not be? It's pretty cut and dry, right?
No, I realize that, but I'm just saying, you would think that they have everything under control, and then something like this happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we just need more laws on the books to prevent this from happening, right?
Right. State, federal, somewhat accountability.
Yeah. We didn't even get into destroying the basilisk. In fact, that's what really gets me excited.
Well, that'd be with Craig.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to having that discussion. Well, where do we go? Where did Zach go? He disappeared. Did we scare him off? Is he off in some corner writing some more laws to be published, and our bills to be voted into law and signed into law? Is he doing executive orders with this podcast? Where is Zach? What is Zach doing?
I don't know.
He's MIA.
He is. Seems like maybe he's got some personal issues he's got to take care of real quick. But I don't know. You want to call it here? I mean, it's about an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's been great. I got to move on to the next items of the day, and to the honey-do list and all that good stuff. But great conversation. Appreciate it.
Where can we find you, William? I mean, it's not like you have been on before, but
yeah,
anybody who's new.
Yeah, sure. I am we on X. I haven't been posting very much lately, just kind of stepping back. But also, Den.social. So we're trying to, we're going to be rebranding that, and it's a unique. Remember, I talked about, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Well, Den.social has got a different way of each post is a poly market, and so each post is begging for the wisdom of the crowd to come to consensus if this post is of quality or not quality. Is this post accurate or not accurate? Is it fake news? Is it real? Is it fact? Was it entertaining or it wasn't entertaining? Was it offensive or not inoffensive? Was it safe for work or not safe for work? And so Den.social is just that. It's incentive based. It uses tokens, happens to have Matter tokens, MATER. MTR is the acronym, but
the ticker,
ticker Matter is the token. It's on Ethereum, but it's kind of somewhat in a holding pattern because it's lost funding based off of Dragon Chain's fight against the SEC. However, we're talking about rebranding, and we're going through that process right now. And you want to check out Den.social. That's a interesting thought concept. And I think it has a lot of potential because it goes right after that point. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Charlie Munger said that. And there is no algorithm that's controlling free speech on the platform. The algorithm are we, the people on the platform, who are voting up or down on a post. So there you have it. Otherwise, like I said, X. And then I've been on various podcasts and bloviating my thoughts of the day from just a guy on the internet who happens to be a last year boomer, I think, or second to last year boomer, who has always adopted new technology and doesn't consider himself a boomer. So how's that?
Nothing wrong with that.
Evergreen young. That's what I have to say.
All right. Well, you could also find us on World Blockchain Roundtable on Thursdays, 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. William's a regular fixture on there, like me and Zach. You can find me on Facebook. It says it in Japanese there, but on X, it's at AICona90. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye for now.
So, yeah.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, by the way. Thanks.